Welcome into this week's Steelers Talk Mailbag. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today I'm answering your questions on the Pittsburgh Steelers as this team prepares to take on the Minnesota Vikings in Dublin this Sunday. Make sure you guys get your questions in a future edition of the Mailbag if you want to by joining us on the live shows that we put out every single Thursday. Usually we go live on, but we're actually filming this on a Wednesday, but this is going out later in the week. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button to join the most interactive Steelers community anywhere on YouTube. We go live twice a week where we talk about Steelers football together. I put your comments up on here during our mailbags every single week so you guys can have a voice on this channel. And then also we react to every Steelers game together on our live watch parties as well. So if you want to join a community of Yinzers that bleed black and gold, that love the Pittsburgh Steelers, and want to have thoughtful discussions surrounding this football team every single day, click that subscribe button right now. All right, so we got one from We Def. Says, will the Steelers get CJ Gardner-Johnson? I would kind of doubt it at this point. They brought in Jabril Peppers. They really like him. He played awesome last week. Mike Tomlin shouted out his communication ability this early into his Steelers tenure. And like, if you're communicating as well as he was last Sunday this early, that means some really good things. You're about to get DeShon Elliott back as well. And I think that's your starting safety duo. Now, Mike Tomlin has dabbled with 3 safety packages in the past, but I think that the Steelers feel good enough about Chuck Clark and Juan Thornhill to throw them out there in those 3 safety packages when you go to those things. So CJ Gardner-Johnson is somebody that is kind of a nutcase. Frankly, he's had multiple falling outs with multiple teams, including just now at the Houston Texans. I think he'd want a full-time starting job. I don't think the Steelers are offering that right now. So honestly, I don't see the fit. Got one from Hot Rod 24. What's up, Hot Rod? Says, what do you think the trade package for a Jakobi Meyers trade would look like? Tough to say. Maybe Roman Wilson gets included in that trade, but somewhere around like a 3rd or 4th round pick is what I would say for Jakobi. He's a good receiver, but he is getting older. I would say probably 4th round pick, 3rd at the very most. And if Omar fleeces the Las Vegas Raiders, they might even get him for a 5th. Then we got one from a $2 super chat from Joseph. It says, will the offensive line be better this week for Rodgers? I wish I could say yes to this question, Joseph, but the Vikings defensive line is very disruptive. We haven't seen the Vikings offensive line really get, or Steelers offensive line, I should say, get much movement up front. And, is it possible that they turn it around and, magic switch just like that? They look a lot better on Sunday? Sure. But, I don't know if I trust Pat Meyer to get that job done. I don't know if I trust the personnel here that's still learning how to play together. If you're hoping that it's going to be better protection this week with no changes personnel-wise, I can't say that I have a high level of confidence in that at this particular point in time. But certainly I have an open mind. I would love for it to happen. Unfortunately, I think Flores' defensive pass rush is probably going to get after the Steelers a bit. Then we got one from Ali the Reaper. It says, how realistic is DJ Moore coming to the Steelers? Kind of realistic, I'd say. We'll see how Chicago looks towards the trade deadline, but there's been reports of DJ having really bad practice habits, which Ben Johnson is not a big fan of. So he's got a lot of years left on his deal, which might prevent the Bears from letting him go. But they have Rome Odunze. They really like Olamide Zaccheaus there. They drafted Luther Burden III. So if they feel like they can get a good price for DJ Moore, like a 3rd round pick for him maybe, maybe that's something that they would consider. I won't say the chances are 0, Ali the Reaper, but I wouldn't say he's at the top of the list in terms of guys that are the most likely to be traded to the Steelers this season. So scale it for me down there in the comment section. What is the confidence level in the Steelers O-line right now? Put it on a scale of 1 to 10 for me down there in the comment section for today's pin question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, let me know your confidence level in the Steelers offensive line on a scale of 1 to 10. Got one from Jacob here. Says, hey, Jack, I know you did the Brian Flores video. But what other head coaching candidates do you think could work? I think Jesse Minter or Joe Brady. Listen, man, I haven't really given it a ton of thought yet because it is so early. The only reason why I did that Flores video, Jacob, in particular was because we were playing the Vikings this week, and I thought it made a lot of sense. And I think that some of these answers are going to be coming up as the year goes on, and who's having success versus who's not. Tanner Engstrand, the offensive coordinator for the Jets, I would really think about. His offensive game plan versus us in the week 1 was awesome. He was Ben Johnson's right-hand man. There's always Shanahan, and there's always McVay guys that you can consider, the QB coaches and the offensive coordinators for those teams. You can always think about those guys. Joe Brady is doing an awesome job in Buffalo. Helps to have Josh Allen, but he's certainly playing to his strengths. Brian Dable is an offensive mind I really respect. He just hasn't had good quarterback play there the entire time he was in New York. So that's another kind of name to consider. Mike McCarthy, Pittsburgh guy, might be a guy to consider. But, those are the guys that come off the top of my head. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury would be a good one as well. Clint Kubiak. Some of these ones, really good offensive minds I would certainly like as well. But honestly, I haven't given it too much thought, 3 weeks into the season, Jacob. Then we got one from Isaac Flam says, do you think the Steelers will win the division? The Ravens keep choking, LOL. I'll tell you this, Isaac. I think the Steelers were licking their chops when they watched Derrick Henry have 3 fumbles in 3 weeks. I think that they're very excited to play the Ravens because, this group is the best in the league at forcing fumbles. Not just T.J. Watt, who's the best in the world at it, but this entire group. 4 different people forced fumbles on this defense last week against the Patriots. That's not a mistake, guys. If there's one thing the Steelers coaching staff does abundantly well, it's teaching guys how to punch the football out. All right, that's a skill, and the Steelers coaching staff has done a really good job at getting these guys to do that. It's one of the main reasons why this defense consistently gives up less than 20 points a game, or at least it has. Not during this 11-game stretch where they're giving up 300 yards a game, right? So Steelers are going to have to play better to win the division. I still think the Ravens are a damn good football team. They've lost to some good teams, right, guys? They lost to Buffalo and lost to Detroit. Most people consider those 2 legitimate Super Bowl contenders. The Steelers still have a long way to go, in my opinion, to compete for the division. But this is a team built to play their best football down the stretch. So I do still have hope that this team can eventually get there. Then we got one from Troy Philip Abuga. It says, Jack, do you think the Steelers will move on from Will Howard and pick up a QB next year, or shall we try him out? Unless Will Howard gets a chance to play at the end of the year and balls out, both those things need to happen, and I don't see either of those things happening by the end of the year, if I'm being honest with you, Troy. The Steelers will be taking a quarterback early next year. Probably in the first round. They'll probably trade up for one if they feel really strongly about somebody. And I like Will as a guy, but the reality is he was a 6th-round pick, and he's not playing probably at all in his rookie season. And it's not like he has like a first-round pedigree in terms of his physical skill set. And frankly, his mental skill set either. I think he showed some good things in the offseason program and during training camp before he got injured, but you can't base, a future projection and making him your franchise quarterback based on that. Now, maybe Aaron Rodgers really vouches for Will Howard, and maybe Rodgers returns for another year, and the Steelers say, well, we've got Will Howard as a potential future option, and we got Rodgers for another year. Maybe we address a different position of need in the draft. That's possible, but the likelihood, in my opinion, of Will Howard being this team's starting quarterback week 1 of the 2026 season, it's probably less than 5%. Then we got one from Solo Dolo Steeler. Says, do you think when Elliott does return this week or next week, Peppers can be used as a substitute linebacker in rotation to help Wilson? No, man. He's see, here's the thing, man. Wilson is your kind of lighter coverage linebacker, right? So Peppers is even lighter than Wilson is. Now, I think he's got more thump to him than Wilson does. That's pretty apparent on film. But the Steelers could do some 3 safety package stuff. They could, if they trust Chuck Clark and Juan Thornhill enough. But honestly, I would prefer to have Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson out there on passing downs and then just have the 2 safeties. Because honestly, I trust Peyton Wilson a little bit more than I trust Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark right now in coverage. All right, so that's where I'm at with that. But I'm certainly open to switching some things up and seeing what works. But that's where I'm at right now, Solo. Before we get into the rest of the questions on this week's mailbag, check out our sponsor today at Omaha Steaks. From handcrafted steaks to delicious fall favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Enjoy USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, plus tailgating favorites like chicken wings, smash burgers, and big deli-style franks. And now, during their Red Hot Sale event, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code Steelers at checkout. So not only do you get 50% off your order when you just go to omahasteaks.com and take advantage of their Red Hot Sale event, but on top of that 50%, you get an additional $35 off when you use our code Steelers. So over 50% your order for some premium cuts of meat. Get that done right now. Cassie and I certainly took advantage of this deal. We got a bunch of steaks that we have. We probably have these things 2-3 times a week at this point. I love making them in the pan at home with a bunch of butter and some rosemary and thyme, and then you put a little garlic in there. You let that sear up for about 6 to 7 minutes. It's absolutely delicious, and that's the best way to make a steak, by the way. You cannot tell me otherwise. Get fired up for fall grilling with Omaha Steaks today. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sale event for an extra $35 off. Use promo code Steelers at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an additional $35 off with promo code Steelers at checkout. See site for details. A big thank you to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Jacob coming in here says, TJ seems to have popped out last week. Do you expect him to play a big role this week? Listen, man, I think that his matchup is actually pretty tough this week. Not only can you expect the Vikings to really chip him a lot, like everybody does, but Brian O'Neill is a legitimate right tackle, guys. He's pretty darn freaking good. Now, I still think TJ's a better player. I think he'll get the best of him more than his fair share of times. And, if the opportunity presents itself, we could see a forced fumble. We could see a sack. It just depends on what kind of opportunities present themselves. How does the secondary hold up? How long is the defense forcing Carson Wentz to hold on to the football? Because honestly, TJ has looked good on film all 3 games. It's just in the first 2 games, Justin Fields and Sam Darnold were getting the ball out really fast, and these guys couldn't get to the quarterback fast enough. And that happened at times against New England as well, but they were definitely getting to Drake May a bit more in week 3 because of the extra time to rush. So I think really what it comes down to here, Jacob, is can the secondary hold up against Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Adam Thielen? Can they hold up against these guys for long enough to make Carson hold it and take sacks? That's going to be the big question that needs to be answered on Sunday. Got one from Clack. Says, do you think Harmon could win Defensive Rookie of the Year? Played really well for only getting 36 snaps. I don't think so, if I'm being honest with you, Clack. He's already missed some time. And, unless he's, completely dominant, which is possible. Don't get me wrong, it's possible. But, he's already missed some time. He's already on a snap count. He's going to be on a snap count again this week. And, then you have your bye. So you're going the first 5 weeks without having, legitimate starting snaps. And it's going to be hard to catch up against some of the defensive players that we're seeing around the league. And, he's just interior defensive linemen in general don't get as many sacks as edge rushers do. That's just a fact, right? So Harmon, I think, is somebody that's going to be a mainstay in this defense for years. I think he's going to be an awesome player. I think that he's the eventual replacement for Cam Hayward at 3 technique, and he's an awesome player to rotate in right now. But in terms of, putting up the kind of dominant numbers you need to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, unfortunately, I think it might be a little too late to be able to be in consideration for that. But I hope I'm wrong. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you are a real one, if you support the channel, if you watch our videos, if you watch our live shows and our watch parties, you guys know what to do. Click that thumbs up icon. It really does help us out. And now we get to another question from Joseph here. It says, do you think Jaylen Warren will have a good day rushing against the Vikings? I hope so, Joseph. I think it's a big key to victory because you look at the teams that beat Brian Flores' defenses, they're the teams that can run on them, all right? And specifically, with this defensive line with Minnesota, it's not the biggest group in the world, all right? They got Javon Hargrave as their nose tackle, all right? Javon is 304 pounds. That's like Keanu Benton size, all right? And we see Benton get driven backwards, right? So if Zach Frazier, if Isaac Seumalo, if Mason McCormick, if they can move the middle of that offensive line, and they can move that defensive line backwards, and they can get these running backs to the second level where Eric Wilson and Ivan Pace are not the biggest linebackers in the world, and they're certainly not thumpers. Steelers could have some opportunities for success, but that's a big if because the Steelers haven't been able to do that stuff all season long to this point. So Jaylen Warren's an awesome player. I think they're going to feed him again. I think they're going to get him a lot of screen passes. They're going to check it down to him a lot. I do expect him to touch the football more than any other offensive player once again this week. But I think the rushing day as a whole, in terms of over 100 yards rushing or less, it's going to depend on the offensive line. Then we got one from Elevate. It says, I think this game is going to have to be won by the defensive line this week. Would you agree? There's a number of ways that you can win an NFL football game, Elevate. Like if the defensive line gets a bunch of sacks and they get a forced fumble or two, or, all this different stuff, then yeah, the defensive line could be the difference in this game. But really, I think the real difference in this game is going to be how the Steelers play offensively. Because I think the Steelers defense against Carson Wentz will actually do a pretty decent job holding them back. All right, Carson Wentz, I think last week was kind of a flash in the pan. A lot of returns on defense for touchdowns, and he was playing with a lead at home. Very comfortable surroundings for him. This week against the Steelers defense that hopefully is going to be getting after his ass a little bit, I think they're going to do pretty decent defensively against him. The question for me is, can the Steelers get to 20 or more points on offense? And if they can, I think they got a pretty decent shot of winning. But if they don't, which is a pretty decent possibility, honestly, Brian Flores is awesome, and this offense has not looked good through 3 weeks. I think that's probably going to be what ends up deciding this football game at the end of the day. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. How many sacks will TJ Watt finish with this year? He already has 2. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What you guys think about TJ Watt and where he finishes in terms of his sack total. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our mailbag this week. Of course, on Sunday morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we'll be going live for our live watch party. Hour-long pregame, followed by live play-by-play. It's going to be a ton of fun, guys. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys. Here we go, Steelers.